Hello, and welcome to the When Depression is in Your Bed podcast. One of the things I've been thinking about lately is how we actually know when healing is working and growth is happening. Because progress doesn't always announce itself. There isn't always a giant breakthrough or fireworks. And even when we do have one of those big, exciting breakthrough moments, it doesn't necessarily mean that lasting change has or will immediately happen. Sometimes a breakthrough just gives us a glimpse of what's possible, but the deeper change we're looking for often happens much more gradually, as new experiences of growth become something that we can access over and over again in our everyday lives. Sometimes we work on ourselves for months and months, or even years and years, and wonder if anything is really changing at all. And then something very ordinary happens. We wake up one morning and we face something that used to overwhelm us, and we notice, wait, something feels different. That thing that used to be a thing just doesn't feel like a thing anymore. I've been reflecting on one of those very moments in my own life, and it helped me recognize just how much my capacity has expanded over time. I'm your host, Trish Sanders. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, a certified Imago relationship therapist, relationship coach, and creator of The Road to Reconnection. And I am delighted that you are here. Let's get started. My realization about my expanded capacity started in a conversation with my son. It's summer, he's 14, he has a few things to do during the week, but he has a lot of free time, and not surprisingly, a lot of that free time easily becomes screen time. So we've been continuing to have conversations about what he can do with some of those hours outside of screen time. Reading, getting outside, moving his body, seeing friends, doing chores, things like that. A very typical parent-teen conversation about how to spend your time during the summer. And I've also been actively trying to help support him in understanding his own neurodivergent brain. I'm trying to support him in noticing what actually feels available to him. What capacity does he have in any given moment? Like, does he have enough capacity to practice his bass, but not quite enough capacity to empty the dishwasher? And I want to help him learn how to make things that feel overwhelming become more manageable. And as I was talking, I shared with him a story from when I was a little girl trying to clean my room, which at the time, and even still sometimes now, feels like an overwhelming task. And my aunt used to sit on the bed and tell me one thing to do at a time. Pick up that toy, now put those clothes away, where do those books go? And she never did it for me, but she helped me break down the task so I felt like I was able to complete it. She was helping me access my capacity by making the next step small enough so that I felt capable of taking it. And as I was telling my son this story, I started to reflect, as I often do, and really noticed how overwhelmed I used to feel for so much of my life. I started thinking about how I used to wake up almost every morning for decades. Before I would even open my eyes, on most days, I would have a subtle sense of dread. It wasn't this huge suffocating thing that I was worried that something terrible was going to happen. It was more like, here we go. I have a lot to do. I have to get moving. I need to start my day, and I have to gather my energy to feel like I can just get out of bed. And I want to be very clear, this did not just happen during times that could be described as a depressive episode. This is just how I woke up most days of my life, even when I had a job as a therapist that I loved and I enjoyed seeing my clients, even when I had a day planned with fun activities with my son, and even during times in my relationship with Ben when things were going really well. Despite all the wonderful things happening in my life, my day so often started with a feeling of heaviness. Just thinking about everything that I had to do felt overwhelming. My days were often fully booked from morning until night, and there was a persistent feeling that life was too full and moving too fast, and I somehow had to figure out how to generate enough energy to be able to get through every single day. And in truth, once I got started, things were usually more or less okay on most days. I got through the day. I took care of my kids, I saw my clients, I did what needed to be done, often supported by a fair amount of caffeine. And sometimes I even had some fun. But just getting started required so much effort almost every day. And for years, I understood that experience through the lens of depression. And I'm not saying that depression wasn't a part of my experience, because it definitely was, but now I see it through a wider lens. I now can see how much my overwhelm was connected to my neurodivergence, to my executive functioning, to my nervous system capacity, to the amount of energy it took for me to be able to get myself to the point where I was able to begin. And as I was standing there talking to my son and thinking about all of these things, it occurred to me, I don't wake up that way anymore. And when I realized that, I have to say, it gave me pause, because I can't even tell you exactly when that stopped. I just know that I can't remember the last time that I woke up with that same sense of dread that I used to know almost every day. Instead, at some point, I replaced my morning ritual of dread with something new. Before I even open my eyes, and before I even start thinking about my day, which used to be the moment that the overwhelm and dread set in, I just take one conscious, full breath. And the interesting thing is that it's not a calming breath. Like, it's not something I do in response to the potential dread or overwhelm. It's not like, okay, Trish, breathe, you got this, which I can tell you I have had many mornings where I did exactly that. It's more of a breath of presence, like, okay, I'm awake. Here I am. I get another day. It's not a structured moment. I don't name 3 things that I'm grateful for, and I don't take 60 seconds to do a meditation. It's just a single breath. A brief moment that feels like a mix of presence and gratitude. And consciously realizing the shift in my morning ritual felt huge because it wasn't planned. It's not like I woke up at some point and I said, I need to start waking up differently in the morning because this sense of dread is not a great way to start the day. Because the change didn't happen all at once. It wasn't from one decision to wake up differently in the morning or from one therapy session or from one breakthrough. It was truly the accumulation of so many choices over so many years. So much healing work, so much nervous system work, so much self-understanding. And somewhere along the journey, my capacity changed. And when I made that connection, it reminded me of another story from early in my social work career. I was in graduate school, and at the time you had to do what's called process recordings, where you basically write down everything that happened in a session between you and a client, and then you go over it with your supervisor. In that process recording, I had written something about a conversation I had with one of my teenage clients, where I had said something along the lines of, it can be hard to identify exactly what is working in therapy. It's more like sometimes you just wake up one day and you notice that something's different. And then you kind of just know something in therapy has been working. And I remember my supervisor at the time commenting that based on my understanding of that, she could tell that I had done my own therapeutic work, which was definitely true. I was in my early 20s at the time, and already by then, I'd been in therapy for over 10 years. And I believed deeply in the transformation that could come from deep work. I wouldn't have become a therapist if I didn't. But along with all the growth that happened over all of those years in therapy and all the years since, there was also so much stuckness. There were so many things that I understood intellectually that I still couldn't quite figure out how to consistently change in my life. That's one of the reasons why the last several years of my growth process have felt so profound to me. My work and training in Imago helped me understand myself and relationships in a completely new way. And then polyvagal came along and helped me connect even more dots. I finally began understanding not just what made something feel hard, but also what I could change to help something totally new become available to me. And that's what I really noticed in my conversation with my son. Something that had been present in my life for decades had quietly shifted. There was no big breakthrough, no fanfare at all. Just an ordinary moment where I realized that my everyday life had changed. And when I talk about expanded capacity, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's not about becoming endlessly productive or being perfectly regulated every day. And it's certainly not about waking up every morning bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready for the day. I'm totally still human. My capacity still changes from day to day, and sometimes moment to moment. I get tired, I get overwhelmed, and sometimes my capacity is definitely more narrowed. But the larger pattern in my life has definitely changed. I now have an experience of having more room. I have more room to respond to whatever comes, more room to rest and recover, more room to be present, more room to be joyful, more room for myself and to be myself. Honestly, I have more room for my whole life. And another reason that conversation with my son felt so deeply meaningful is because my expanded capacity doesn't just affect me, it affects him too. I can be with him differently. I can help him break down tasks so they feel more manageable. I can support him in ways that help expand his capacity rather than reacting to things that he may not be doing exactly as I wished he would, which only further narrows his capacity. And that's one of the things that I find so powerful about this work. As our capacity expands, it allows more of us to show up in our lives and in our relationships. And I know that being in the middle of growth can be hard sometimes because we can't quite see the progress that we're making. And we're still so focused on everything we haven't done and everything that still feels so hard. Sometimes we're so focused on how far we have left to go that we don't stop to take a moment to see how far we've come. So maybe every once in a while, instead of asking yourself, how come I'm not there yet? Or how much further do I have to go? You can try asking yourself a different question. Maybe what isn't as hard as it used to be? Or what feels a little bit different now than before? Maybe sometimes you speak to yourself a little bit differently. Maybe now you have moments of rest without feeling guilty. Maybe sometimes you find yourself asking for help, or you notice that you have moments where you're not overwhelmed as much as you used to be. Or maybe like me, you notice that you've been waking up feeling lighter and more present than you ever have before. And that's one of the clear indicators that capacity has expanded. Not that life has become perfect, but that more of you is genuinely available to live it. And to me, there's something incredibly hopeful about that. And I hope that in today's conversation, there's something hopeful for you too. As our time comes to a close, I ask you to keep listening for just a few more moments because I want to thank you for showing up today. And I want to leave you with an invitation as you hit stop and move back out into the world on your own unique wellness journey. In order to move from where you are today to the place where you want to be, the path may seem long or unclear or unknown. And I want you to know that if that seems scary or daunting or downright terrifying or anything else, that is totally okay. Know that you do not have to create the whole way all at once. We don't travel a whole journey in one stride. And that is why my invitation to you today is to take a step, just one. Any type, any size, in any direction. It can be an external step that can be observed or measured, or it could be a step you visualize taking in your mind. It can be a step towards action or towards rest or connection or self-care or whatever step makes sense to you. I invite you to take a step today because getting to a place that feels better, more joyful, more connected than the place where you are today is possible for everyone, including you, and even when depression is in your bed. If today's episode resonated with you, please subscribe so you can be notified when each weekly episode gets released. I encourage you to leave a review and reach out to me on social media at trish.sanders.lcsw. Your feedback will help guide future episodes, and I love hearing from you. Also, please share this podcast with anyone who you think may be interested or who may get something from what I have shared. Until the next time we connect, take care of yourself and take a step.